We've heard the lore, we've seen the art. Now let's get ready to talk about some gameplay. I know a lot of people are excited to hear more about how this class actually plays. So next up, we have Bjorn Mikkelsen, class designer, on stage to talk about the gameplay for the Spiritborn. Bjorn is actually here to tell us more about the Spiritborn's overall class kit and design. And later on, we'll get into some itemization, which I know every fan wants to hear about because itemization is, of course, incredible, especially within Diablo. Bjorn, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
I know Bjorn will be a fan favorite here because he's going to walk us through all the skills and the gameplay for how it works. So Bjorn, can you kick us off and tell us a little bit about this new class?
Absolutely. So yeah, just high level, what is this class? Excellent question. So basically what Spiritborn are, they are these jungle warriors who are empowered by the spirits. They're sort of this dexterity-focused class and sort of masters of martial arts and hand-to-hand combat. And so what they do is ultimately all of their actions and their movements, they sort of resonate with the spirits to form sort of these unique combat styles as they're fighting. They sort of mix and match them to hit whatever sort of build they need.
Awesome. So if you are a current Diablo player right now, or let's say I'm a current Diablo player, which I am, I play a lot of Rogue or Barb, where would you kind of place the speed and aggression of the Spiritborn?
Yeah, I would say Spiritborn is definitely probably our fastest, most aggressive class. It's got multiple gap closers built into its basic attacks. It's got several movement skills, very high damage on those, as well as several ways to upgrade its evade skill as well. It's all about kind of getting on a target, sticking to it, and killing it.
Awesome. I know we had footage earlier of within the trailer of players actually being able, and we talked about this earlier, players being able to actually summon in these spirit guardians. So can you just summon a giant jaguar into battle or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, kind of in addition to being these master martial artists, because they're empowered by these spirits, you'll see parts of the spirits, but then ultimately with the ultimates, the spirits themselves will show up on the battlefield and they'll empower you and deal damage.
And it's really the core of the fantasy, right? If we talk about power fantasies, summoning the god into battle is the power fantasy for this class. And one of the things that I really liked about that is that we were getting a bunch of feedback early on about making ultimates more meaningful, and we were actually able to do that with this class ground up.
Awesome. I know people are probably dying to know, okay, let's jump into some Spirit Guardians. So I think this is a great opportunity. Maybe we should start off with the Jaguar being the first one. Bjorn, do you want to take us through the Jaguar itself?
Sure. Yeah, starting off, Jaguar is a great one. Jaguar is, as we've kind of touched on before, it is sort of this manifestation of just the hunter. It's exhilaration, it's violence, it's aggression. It's attacking repeatedly, kind of just constant pressure as it's going. It's got these ramping mechanics to it. It's got lots of kill streaks. Mechanically speaking, the way we've kind of translated this, its primary focus is attack speed, and it chases that through a new keyword and mechanic that we call ferocity. This is a stacking buff that it can generate, usually via Jaguar skills, that will increase the attack speed of all of its skills, but it will also enhance other Jaguar skills so you can use them more often, reduce their cooldowns, that sort of thing. Moving on to an example, I guess, of a Jaguar skill. First off, here's one we have Ravager. This is a new type of skill we're adding to the game called Incarnate skills. They all have a passive and active effect. This one allows you to maintain your ferocity at just a minimum level, so you're all just a little bit fast. But then when you activate it, you kind of go full Jaguar mode. It gives you additional attacks, kind of whenever you hit something, it does an extra strike. So it can even turn skills that are deal a little bit less damage, they can now deal extra damage just whenever you hit something. Moving on to another skill, we have Rushing Claw. This one is the Jaguar's kind of primary mobility skill. It will dash you through a target and slash everything along the way. And the key to this one is you can kind of use it over and over and over again, multi-strike your enemies. And then finally, of course, we have the ultimate, the Hunter. This will actually manifest the Jaguar onto the battlefield. You'll leap through the air. It's also a movement skill. And when you land, the Jaguar will destroy everything. And it also has upgrades to kind of help chase the kill streak vibe. There's a chance to reset the cooldown after you kill something with it.
Yeah, so if you look at all of these things as a package, you start to see almost a combat archetype built into each Guardian themselves. And that was actually something that was really important to us. So if you were speccing into the Jaguar, it's important to those types of players who do want to keep the attack speed up, that do want to keep their kill streaks going. And you're going to see this as like a through line that each particular Guardian will have their own thing.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the fast, frantic gameplay, and I will say I have a little bit of bias towards the Jaguar for sure. But I know we want to go on to the other Guardians for sure. And for all our tanky friends out there, Bjorn, do you want to walk us through the Gorilla?
Absolutely. Moving on to the Gorilla. The Gorilla. Core concept behind protection and defense, but it's not just like passive defense. This is a very active defensive play style where you're shrugging off the damage, but you're also returning it to your attacker. So it's really got this kind of core of like retribution also sort of built into it. Its core mechanic and stat that we work with is damage reduction. It chases this in two ways. One is through using block, sort of actively blocking damage, as well as a second new keyworded mechanic called resolve. This is also a stacking buff, but this one falls off whenever you get hit, so it's really important to keep stacking it and kind of keep stealing yourself and building your resolve back up. But as long as you have any stacks of it, you get the full damage reduction bonus. So moving on to just a couple of examples for Gorilla skills. Starting off, we have Crushing Hand. This is their core spender skill. Kind of just does what it says. We'll smash your enemies to pieces. Kind of neat thing about it is it's actually two separate attacks that kind of overlap in the middle. So you can sort of prioritize a single target and deal double damage to it. Another attacking skill that we have, this one's Payback. This one really leans hard into the sort of aspect of retribution that we have going on. This one will deal a large amount of damage, and that damage will ramp up the more something has hit you. So it's really good for just like ending a fight if you need to. But also like as things are hitting you, that will reduce its cooldown. So kind of you have this flow of like being able to sort of like end fights, but also kind of keep hitting as you go. And then finally, again, we have the ultimate skill, bringing in the Gorilla itself. The skill is called the Protector. It creates a large protected area on the battlefield that will grant you barrier while you're inside of it, as well as several other defensive bonuses that you can spec into with it. And the Gorilla will just smash any enemies that try to come and harm you while you're in it.
Yeah, if you like that bruiser archetype, like this is the build for you. It is definitely about that give and take of damage. I mean, you'd said it earlier. Anyone who's been looking for a tank or a tank-like build in Diablo, this is the one that you're going to want to spec into as a part of your kit.
Yeah, it sounds like a really unique way of being able to, especially for tank players, to like bring damage to enemies and stuff like that, which is so awesome. So next, on to our third Guardian. Of course, we have the Eagle. Bjorn, do you want to take us through the Eagle?
Yeah, so the Eagle, kind of soaring above it all, we've got this Guardian that represents precision and accuracy and kind of finesse. Its ability, its freedom of movement, like a lot of the movement that the class has is very aggressive, very in your face, and the Eagle really is able to kind of take that to another level and kind of go wherever it wants. In addition to that, it can also sort of like extend its attacks to sort of pseudo-ranged playstyle. Allows it to really like prioritize a target and sort of like hit from anywhere. So its core stat that it cares about is movement speed. That allows it kind of, like I said, able to kind of go anywhere it wants and sort of tactically reposition on the battlefield. And it also has several ways to sort of amplify its evade skill, adding damage, that sort of thing to it. So moving into just a couple examples, we of course have to start off with Soar. This is sort of Spiritborn's premier mobility skill. Takes you up into the air, out of the battle for a second, able to dodge mechanics with that if you need to. But also, because the Eagle is all about kind of those big impacts as well, it will create a target area where you're going to come down and make those enemies vulnerable so that it just amplifies the damage when you land. Moving on to another example, we have Razor Wings. This is a damaging skill for the Eagle. This one has kind of this cool back and forth where it sends it out, allows you to hit something at range, but because it also returns to you, it sort of rewards you for the tactical positioning on the battlefield, so you can sort of line it up so it'll hit different things as it comes back. And then, of course, our ultimate skill, the Seeker, bringing in the Eagle itself to just annihilate your enemies with damage. You can cast it anywhere on the battlefield. It charges up and then blasts off. The blast can be upgraded to be a guaranteed critical strike, and while it's on the battlefield, it will also make everything vulnerable for you. This is also like one of the first ultimates that we have, which will have multiple charges, so you can kind of use it back to back or like prioritize a target with it, and there's like a lot of player agency with that.
Yeah, this is really for that tactical player, where positioning is super important. You don't necessarily want to be constantly in the fray, so you still want to output that damage. Maybe you want to put it in a particular place in the encounter, but you can do it by going in and then you can get right back out. So for those players who really like that tactical positioning, that's what the Eagle is for.
Yeah, it seems like the Eagle gives you that extra freedom of in mobility, so you can kind of move in and out, especially with things like Soar, which is sick to see for sure.
It's one of my favorites.
So unique for Diablo IV for sure on that end. Last but not least, of course, this is probably our most unique Spirit Guardian, and probably one that I'm sure a lot of people are like looking at and going like, oh, this has got to be crazy, and that is the Centipede. So Bjorn, how's the Centipede play out?
Yeah, so moving to the Centipede. The Centipede's very unique. It represents this sort of abstract concept of the cycle of life and death, and the way we've kind of chosen to interpret that is that it's sort of this epicenter of attrition, but it's also like really about just kind of like this endless or inescapable sort of persistence. And that's like really bad for your enemies, but kind of really good for you. So its core mechanics that it works with that persistence is damage over time, poisoning, crowd controls, that sort of thing. But then it uses those things to sort of empower and sustain itself. So also like leeching life and that sort of thing back to you, sort of draining your enemies as you kill them. So moving on to just a quick example, Stinger is our core skill for the Centipede. This one does a large amount of damage in a small area in front of you, but the sort of interesting thing about it is that damage will also echo out to any nearby poisoned enemies. So it kind of has this adaptive, like dynamic range that it has, sort of depending on like how much you've been spreading your poisons around the field. So it can like basically like hit the whole screen if you really want to. Another skill example that we have would be Scourge. Scourge kind of takes that sort of like oppressive control that the Centipede has, and it will fear and it will slow and poison enemies and sort of disrupt any kind of like strategies they might have going on and just sort of allow you to turn the tables on them. And then finally, we have the ultimate skill, bringing in the Centipede itself onto the battlefield. This is the Devourer. Poison laser beams, globs of poison everywhere. Just the Centipede kind of wrecking the entire battlefield. It's got upgrades which will also allow it to instantly execute enemies who have been fully poisoned, sort of helping the cycle of life and death to speed up a little bit there.
Yeah, this is clearly our most Diablo Guardian that we have. It's becoming a fan favorite very quickly. The people who have gotten a hands-on with it have a lot to say about it. But the cool thing about this one is we took on a really unique design challenge. Like, how do you take a concept of damage over time, dealing damage, regenerating life, and make that kind of the core of an entire archetype? I thought you guys did a fantastic job at getting it there. For those Type A players who really want to manipulate the field and keep that damage up and keep that resilience going, this is definitely that class for you.
Yeah, I have to call out. It's so crazy seeing a giant centipede behind me right now. But I know a lot of players at home are probably looking at each of these 4 Spirit Guardians and they're going like, hey, this is probably the one I'm going to go with, just seeing some of the gameplay and some of the play styles. But I think one big question that probably a lot of people have is, are you kind of forced to go down one of these, or can you actually do some mix and match, or how does that work?
Freedom of choice is really important for this class. So if you want to go all in on one of them, go for it. Like, there's no problem in doing that. There's benefits that you can see from it, but there's also benefits from mixing and matching. Like, we wanted adaptability and hybridization to be at the core of this class. So it's been a goal from the very beginning to actually get that there. So when you get hands-on with this, like, you're going to want to experiment. We want you to experiment. We know that there's going to be many builds that are very emergent, and I actually can't wait to see some of the cool stuff that people come up with once this goes live.
Yeah, exactly. Like, at its heart, Spiritborn is really all about like personalization, sort of expressing yourself. And so like, whichever spirit sort of resonates with you, we really want to allow you to mix and match them kind of to your heart's content. And sort of make that play style choice like fully customizable. And the primary way that we're doing that, or the main way that we're doing that, is the Spiritborn's class mechanic called Spirit Hall. The way the Spirit Hall works is you start your journey off by choosing one of 4 bonuses. At the top, the primary bonus. This is a like massive bonus that will add sort of a thematic effect to all of your skills of that type. So like an effect like the Jaguar will add extra strikes and that sort of thing to all your Jaguar skills. But a subtle but very important extra piece of this is that we'll also add that Spirit's tag to your entire skill kit. So every single part of your skill kit now has the Jaguar skill. And so even if you want to use like Centipede skills, you can still sort of hook into various parts of the Jaguar using this bonus. Then later on in your journey, you will unlock a second bonus. This is a set of 4 distinct bonuses from the first. Each of these kind of has a tie-in with the sort of core mechanics of each of the spirits. So we mentioned before sort of the new keywords that we were introducing, like with the Jaguar has ferocity, the Gorilla has resolve, those sorts of things. These give you an opportunity to sort of mix those into your kit, regardless of like if you are using those specific skills or not, and sort of like add that extra layer on top of your build. And when you're choosing these spirits, these can absolutely be the same. You can pick Gorilla and Gorilla, Jaguar, Jaguar, or you can mix and mash them. And it's really important that like they all kind of flow and work together.
So if you look at the nesting doll effect that we have of your skill tree, your class mechanic, this can get complicated very quickly. And so one of the things that the team took on was this idea of finding what resonates most with each Guardian, and how do we create some level of overlap so that we can have some synergies between all of them.
Yeah, exactly. As we hit, like each of these has like very clear themes, right? You've got the Jaguar with its attack speed, you've got the Gorilla with its protection. You can definitely build into those, but it was important for us to sort of establish that these spirits, they don't exist like in isolation from each other. They have overlap. They have things that they both care about, and that allows us to sort of create these very hybrid-esque builds that work together. You know, just like an example, right? You've got like the Jaguar is a hunter. It's all about aggression and kind of chaos, and that's a thing. It loves that. But as a hunter, you're also sort of providing, you're also sustaining yourself, which is a thing that the Centipede also loves to do. And so they both care about healing, and they both have like different hooks that they can do for that. And so you can really like, if you're looking to get more healing into your build, you can add some Centipede, you can add some Jaguar, mix them together, you can make an entire build about healing that is Centipede and Jaguar. These aren't like prescribing ways to build, but they're more so just like they're overlapping stats that allow them to sort of communicate with each other. So just a couple examples. We have, for instance, if you want to build like the Gorilla, Gorilla's a lot of protection, Jaguar's a lot of sort of chaotic, constant damage. So when you mix those two together, you get this sort of like semi-tanky brawler who can just kind of go toe-to-toe with anything. And they sort of like dip into the stat of dodge, because dodge is a little bit inherently a slightly more RNG, a little bit more chaotic, kind of Jaguar, but it also kind of has that damage mitigation. And so you kind of combine them together and you have this very like retribution, but also fast-paced playstyle. Another example would be potentially if we think about like the Centipede and the Eagle. The Centipede's all about sort of debilitating your enemies and like making them weaker, and the Eagle's all about like kind of finding those weak points and like getting these high damage, you know, bursts off. So when you add those two together, they both care about vulnerable and sort of like turning the tables on all of your enemies. And so adding that together kind of creates this character that's sort of just able to like prioritize a target, weaken it, and then just like cull it from the battlefield.
Yeah, it's. I'm so glad Bjorn brought all these like really good examples for us. He's got a lot of footage for us to go through. It's awesome to see all these skills and how they work with the actual Spirit Guardians. And of course, the big popular topic that comes with every single class is itemization. And I know we have a lot to talk about with legendary aspects and some uniques as well. So Bjorn, Brent, like how does itemization work with Spiritborn?
Yeah, we all know that itemization is the heart of the game, right? And as we've been moving through our itemization journey with this game, we've had a really great opportunity to fold in all the feedback and how that applies to the Spiritborn as we've been developing. And one of the cool things that we did was took the opportunity to actually lean into the things that you get from items and see how they build into the spirit's abilities themselves. So we're going to show a few examples of that. Now this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of really cool stuff coming, but we thought we'd do a really quick breakdown and show you what that looks like.
Yeah, so just hitting a couple examples, you know, we have added this large suite of Spiritborn legendaries and uniques to the game. But just to break down kind of some of our thoughts as we were working with them, sort of the types of legendaries you can expect to see. One example, as we were just speaking about, sort of these hybridization things. There's a lot of different stats in our game, and sort of making them work together, not just like work together, but like be cool together. So we kind of have this category of items that will sort of interweave a couple of different stats. Secondly, we have our power augmentation legendaries. These just kind of let you take like your favorite skill and ascend it to its final form and just kind of like go crazy with it. And then thirdly, we have sub-powers. These are sort of things like, we think of them like rogue grenades, barbarian, dust devils. These are sort of things you can sort of build around. They're sort of almost like skills, but they don't exist in your skill tree as things you can put on your bar. And then finally, we have our unique items, which are there to enable you to sort of make the craziest builds you can think of. So moving on to a couple examples, just kind of one for each real quick. We have Tormentors. This is an example of a hybridization legendary. This one interweaves poisoning and thorns together, kind of in an interesting way that'll allow you to apply your thorns, in a different way than just like having something hit you all the time. It's great. You can probably see the connection. Gorilla, Centipede, they'll love this sort of thing. Moving on to an example of a power augmentation, we have Bristling Vengeance. This takes the payback seal that we kind of hit on before. Usually it's like a smaller AoE like right in front of you that just hits one enemy, but this one really allows it to sort of like extend its range, hit multiple enemies, as well as apply your thorns over an area. And then thirdly, we have an example of one of our sub-powers. This one's called a Pestilent Swarm. The cool thing that we're kind of trying to out with each of our sub-powers is there are multiple legendaries for them, and they sort of allow you to customize how they work. So there's like one that'll let your Pestilent Swarm like poison enemies, one that'll make it spiral, one that'll even make it orbit. You can sort of like combine those, like you can have it orbit and spiral, or poison. You can just have it shoot off, kind of whatever works for your build. We really want people to be able to experiment and play with those sub-powers. And then just a couple of teasers, some of our uniques. These are some unique boots that basically allow you to override your evade skill with soar, just get the ultimate amount of mobility you can think of. The neat thing about that is also that it allows you potentially like to take soar off your bar. You can't let it go, but you at least kind of get to keep it with you in that evade slot. And then another example would be our unique quarterstaff. Which is one of the two weapons we're adding with the Spiritborn. This one sort of allows you to ramp up your basic attacks. Spiritborn's basic attacks are a little bit special. They're kind of really cool. They're these 3-hit combos, and each third hit does like a special thing. And this specific unique basically lets you get that third attack all the time. So then we have to take their third attack and make it a triple version that almost turns them into a different skill entirely.
Yeah, this is awesome. Seeing all the couple of examples of uniques. As Brent mentioned, this is just kind of like the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
I personally would take the soar boots all day. Being able to use soar as an evade is absolutely amazing. But I want to give a huge thanks to Bjorn for walking us through all the skills, especially associated with the Spirit Guardians, and of course the itemization across the whole entire class. We will actually